Pretty much the same format that we've done in the past. So we've got one of our adjunct faculty here this afternoon who's going to be able to talk with us just a little bit about sort of environmental scanning, thinking about your environment. Is that right, Tosha? Sort of, I'll let you define your how you're gonna go about it. But appreciate being able to have her here. Tosha and I circled many years ago, way back when I think she might even been a doc student or finishing up or just getting started as an assistant professor at Arnova, and then we've reconnected and we've got her in some of it. She teaches a class for us online and will continue to be part of our adjunct faculty. Quick introduction. So she is a professor in nonprofit management and public administration. She serves as the tobacco prevention coordinator at the Schulich Medical Center. She's also affiliated with the University of Southern Indiana and with us, teaches public administration, nonprofit management, research methods, also serves as an independent consultant, experience in research-based information, capacity building, strategic planning, focus groups, board governance, so lots of good stuff. So you all ask your questions about the specific topic, or I suspect she's ready to wing just about anything that you can throw at her at this point. Sorry, Tosha, don't mean to set you up, but
no problem.
we'll back you up. We'll back you up.
Bring it at me.
We can chime in as well. She's a member of the American Evaluation Association, also of the Association for Research and Nonprofit and Voluntary Action, so Arnova, that's our kind of research association. She's a doctorate and a master's in public administration from the University of Illinois at Springfield and a Bachelor of Science from Millikan University. She's presented her research nonprofit in multiple venues and continues to sort of do a variety of things. Also doing another webinar later next month, so you can catch that there. So with that, thrilled to be able to have Tosha as a part of our team here at the Bush School. Appreciate you joining us and spending a little bit of time with us this afternoon. I know you've got slides, so I'll go on ahead and turn it over to you. Sound good?
That sounds like a plan here. Let me upload. Share screen. Make sure I get everything.
Folks, feel free to introduce yourself on the chat box as well, just to make sure I know there's a lot of regulars, but a few new folks, so that's always nice. Place to introduce yourself, and questions welcome all the way along. Both Kenny and I will be monitoring and tracking that. So
okay. Well, so is it afternoon there? Is it still morning?
It is afternoon. We just made
afternoon. Okay, well, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Will, for such a nice introduction. My name is Tosha Cantrell-Bruce, and really, I do, how this came about is I like to do a little preparation, as many of you do, for future classes. And I thought, how can I go about preparing for future classes while also contributing something to society at large from a practitioner point of view? And I need to tell you, I have a background. While I was getting my terminal degree, I was also an extension educator. So my whole philosophy is doing applied research, using research-based information, but also turning knowledge into practice. So I like to take the data and be able to explain it and turn it into practical applications for people out in the field doing the work. So that's kind of my philosophy. And I have a series of fact sheets that I do 3 to 4 times a month during the summer months. And sometimes the list, the order in which I do them gets a little, some of them get postponed because of recent events. And I think it's important to sometimes be timely when you are addressing certain things. But I also believe strongly in responding to events instead of just reacting to events. And so this topic, environmental scanning, has been something that I have taught before. I've taught nonprofit marketing. I think I taught that for 6 years. And during my nonprofit marketing courses, I would have all of my graduate students go out anywhere in the world, reach out to a nonprofit, and then I would mentor all of those graduate students all 16 weeks on how to do a nonprofit marketing analysis, everything from target publics, differentiation, segmentation, and environmental scanning. what I have found watching the news and watching current events since last December, at least on BBC, and March, when you were starting to watch it a little bit more on United States television, is that organizations are really needing to adapt to the current environment. And environmental scanning is typically something that people hear about when they talk about marketing. They want to talk about your internal environments and your external environments, and make sure that you address your product, place, price, promotion in those ways that meet your internal and external demands. So my idea was to see if we cannot take the same tools of environmental scanning and also apply those to an organization as a whole on helping to respond and plan for current events in the world. So I have here, and hopefully the slides, part of your faces are covering my slides. So if you can't see my slide, let me know, okay? So I have right here just environmental scanning, adapting to external influences while pursuing your organization's purpose. I will touch today on introducing what environmental scanning is. I'll talk a little bit about internal scanning, although that's going to be something I touch on in a week or two. I've got a fact sheet and a webinar I'm doing on organizational culture. But today we're going to focus on external scanning, and particularly what I call a PEAST analysis, P-E-E-S-T. And then I'm going to give you a real life example of an organization I'm working with currently that uses the PEAST analysis to adapt its work to current conditions. So what exactly is environmental scanning? Very simple. It is a way that organizations scan internal and external events or issues that affect an organization. Very simple. Sometimes it's not so simple to implement it though. So internal scanning. Internal scanning is something we've all probably done. How many of you just have looked at or taught about organizational culture in your classes or in your work? Show of hands of anyone? Organizational culture, kind of, sort of? Okay, I see some nods, good. So organizational culture is also related to internal scans. It's looking for the trends within the organizations and the impact that those trends have on management, employees, volunteers in the nonprofit sector, and the overall culture. And a very simple diagram that helps look at this, and those are not the only 4 trends that they look at, but just for the sake of an introduction today, you're going to be looking at how employees relate to other employees. How do management relate to other management? How do the employees relate to managers? And also, how is the structure? And if any of you are Bowman and Deal fans, we know that organizational structure can affect a lot of the different processes that occur within an organization. But beyond internal scanning, there's also external scanning. Now, I use the acronym PEAST, and I don't know if that's showing here. I can't move this. So PEAST, P-E-E-P-E-E-S-T, PEAST. And it's just an acronym that stands for political, economic, environmental, sociocultural, and technology. Now, when I say political, we don't mean Republicans and Democrats, okay? We're talking about political being more of the law, regulations, ordinances, and in some cases, when you talk about political, you're talking about those people in your community that are gatekeepers, influential people or organizations that you may need to see what they're doing, how they're doing it, and how that may affect your organization. We also have economic. That is certainly one that has affected all organizations in today's society, with the high rate of unemployment and the stability of the economy and consumer confidence. Environmental. Environmental is one, and in full disclosure, environmental, this used to be called PEST, P-E-S-T, political, economic, sociocultural, and technology. I decided, well, heck, I'm going to throw my own one in there, and I did, particularly in light of recent events with COVID-19, with demonstrations about social injustice, and all of the natural disasters. You go back, you can look at natural disasters of the Katrinas. You can look at all those different types of environmental things that are going on that can also affect your organization. We also have social, cultural, and again, gender, age, race, sexual orientation, any of those underrepresented groups, and your technology. We all know, many of us, I don't know here in this group, because I think we're all pretty used to the Zoom meetings, although just last week I did have a Zoom meeting with a coalition with a 94-year-old doctor who had used Zoom for his very first time. And I was so proud of him. But we know that technology is also an impact or a factor that influences our organization. What we do and how we do it is influenced by all of these factors. Okay, and with the increased comfort of technology, there's a very good chance that the use of technology is going to continue to influence the way we do our business, both in public organizations and nonprofit, just as well as the private organizations. Now I tried to do a little diagram here just to kind of show you there we go, a little bit about how it works. This I'm not going to repeat, but if you want, obviously we're recording this. If you want to take a look at this very simple way of showing people what are these different external factors that can influence an organization, here they are: the political, economic, environmental, socio-cultural, and technological. So let me give you just a brief example here. Recently, I have a very short-term contract that I'm working with a tobacco prevention coalition on behalf of the Indiana State Department of Health. And one of the requirements of the grant, we all know how grants do have requirements. One of the requirements of the grant is to do what's called a retail audit. Has anyone heard of retail audit before? Okay. What happens in the retail audit in the tobacco industry prevention area is that volunteers and staff go inside of stores of retailers. They have a certain number of questions they ask the cashiers or the managers, and they also measure the distance between kid items like the slushies and the candy bars. And they measure how far away are these kid-related items from a tobacco advertisement. How far away is it from a tobacco product? Okay, and not just the e-cigs and the tobaccos, but now they even have puff bars. Puff bars, in case you're not familiar with puff bars, just to I hate to use words people don't know, puff bars are the new loophole. You know how the federal government said you can no longer have certain flavored vapes and e-cigs. Puff bars that loophole because they're disposable. So they're not considered vapors, but they can still make them in fruity, tutti, mango, every flavor they want because they're disposable. So you have a group of volunteers and staff going into an organization, and they're supposed to measure items, how far away they are, how high are they up, are they at kid height, eyesight height, and to go up and ask questions of the cashiers. Okay. Have any of you ever experienced anything like this? No? Okay. So let's think back to our pieced analysis. Political, meaning rules, laws, regulations. Economic, consumer confidence. Environmental, pandemic, natural disasters. Socio-cultural, and technological issues. Can you think of, out of any of those factors that might affect the ability to go into the retail establishments and do these types of retail audits? And it's not rhetorical either. And if you'd like, I can go back to this slide here. Can you think of any of these factors that might affect why someone may or may not go into, I'll say, gas stations to do this type of data collection? Anyone want to share one?
Certainly political.
Political? How so, Linda?
Well, I mean, I would say, we're talking about, well, I guess it's a combination of political and economic. At what point are regulations and, infringing on quote unquote personal rights, and is that shopkeeper going to be welcoming to someone who they perceive as a threat to the economy of their store? So I think those are kind of interrelated. And the political in a vape shop or someone who is in that area, they're not very welcoming to folks who are going to come in and ask those sorts of questions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, those are very good points, Linda. Yeah, I will say that a lot of the vape shops were left off, except if they were specifically vape only. But there's, as you know, there's a lot of stores out there that sell vapes that aren't just vape shops. You're right. Yeah. Any other factors that you guys can think of what would you want? What factor in here might prevent you from sending one of your kids into the stores with the adults to measure this stuff? I'll give you a clue. Texas is having an increase. No? How about this one? Environmental, public health crisis, social distancing.
Got it in the comments there.
Oh, was it? I'm sorry, I didn't see the comments. Yes,
Yeah,
okay. Thank you very much.
She got it right before you, right then.
Yes, good job. Good job. Okay. Certainly. And we have the coalition, I say we, because I always feel like I'm a part of a team, even if I'm just consulting with them or contracting. We have kids of all ages that are going with adults to do these things. And there's reasons why you would want kids to go with you, is because certainly systemic change really starts with that new generation coming up and becoming more educated. So the exposure, some of the concerns from the parents as well as some of the teenage kids was, I don't want to go up to the cashier and ask these questions. I don't want to be that close to people. And you have to remember this retail audit was supposed to happen in late March. So that also gives you a little bit of a time frame in what happened. We also had people that I don't know about in Texas and some of your locations, the county that I'm contracted with is a rural county. Now, I know I have a Tennessee accent sometimes. Rural is R-U-R-A-L, not the other one, okay? Rural county. And their gas stations, if you were to say 6 feet apart, would only hold about 3 people in the entire store. So again, social distancing was not an option. So let's see here. So we kind of look at how you can apply these different factors into just one way in which they're going to go about achieving a goal, or supposedly achieving a goal of their grant. So how might PEACE apply? Okay. The pandemic certainly had something to do with it. And how did they use PEACE to be creative and meet grant goals? Well, I am very impressed I'm impressed with all of the stakeholders in that county, but I'm particularly impressed with the teenagers because boy, are they on top of it. They have so many great ideas. They decided, let me see here. Oh, let me take you to one other thing that helped work them through. This is something that I kind of did for them. I showed them how do you make community. This is a model of mine that shows how you go about making community change to change policy systems and norms. But what they decided here on down is they went through a worksheet like this. You point out over here, I'm like pointing at my screen like you see what I'm saying. You look over here at the point of the SAL goal. Okay, that's the retail audit. And the point of it is community education and support of the point of sale, including the retail audit. So they go through brainstorming ideas, political, environmental, economical, societal, and technological, and all they do is list ideas. These are not suggestions. And those of you that have gone through facilitation training, you know, you always make sure you understand there's a difference between an idea and a difference between a suggestion. Ideas are given freely. Don't censor yourself. Don't think how hard it might be to implement it. Just put it down. It's an idea. So some of their ideas is that there could be an increased concern about social distancing. There could be increased use of pay at the pump.
Tasha,
Yes, ma'am.
I think your slide didn't advance for some of us anyway.
Oh, I apologize.
That's okay. Are you on slide 10?
No, ma'am. I'm on slide 9.
Oh, okay. Never mind.
Okay.
Then you're right. We have it.
So right here, there we go. I'm highlighting. So these are
Thank
some
you.
of the social ideas that they were saying, well, in society, people may be more concerned about going inside of gas stations to pay, so they may start paying at the pump. Or they may say more people might be more concerned about social distancing. When they looked at technology, some of their ideas was there is a huge increase in the number of technology tools available to us. And especially with my 94-year-old doctor who's on my coalition, there's an increased comfort with technology amongst the groups. Okay, so I just kind of wanted to show, this is kind of how I went through and did an idea breakdown. I won't go too much further into that. That was a presentation they did. So go back here. And so what did they decide to do? Awesome kids. I say kids. Some of them were 20, 23 years old. I'm sorry. Awesome young adults. They decided if we have to get this data, you know, for the Indiana State Department of Health, and that's being funded through tobacco settlement money, we have to do data collection, which is my favorite thing to do. I love data collection. I get all excited about it. How are we going to do it? Well, it says we just have to get the data. Didn't say how we have to get the data necessarily. So they decided, they went to all 45 retailers in their county, and they took pictures. If you'll see here, I'm on slide 11. Do you see this? It says they turned the challenge into a creative solution. And they took photographs of, and they have different words in tobacco world. External advertisements, meaning those that are hanging on a pole outside, or maybe some that might be attached to the gasoline pump, as well as outward facing promotions like this. Okay, I don't know what Edgefield is or LD is, but these are outward facing. And so they say, well, how do you know if it's near a kid item? The whole point is to say, you know, how close are these advertisements to kid items? Well, what's right next to the cigarette ad? You can see part of the word.
Milkshakes.
Milkshakes, of course. So they were able to gather data about how close promotion was to kid, or what they call confectionery items, without putting themselves in danger. Another thing that they did, here's another one. Now these they just copy and pasted the multiple ones, but here's another picture that they had. This one blew my mind. You have, again, the milkshake one and the cigarettes here. And it's next to, what do kids love to drink? Gatorade, Mountain Dew, right? Okay. Camp Moose is some type of camp they got, which is right next to menthol type of cigarillos, and the big old Winston sign. Okay. And believe me, I married into a NASCAR family 20 years ago. I know all about Winston Cup and how that took a huge cultural change.
We're supposed to be on. But
What's that? So, but what is right above the Winston sign? Candy, gum, candy, without it being specific. So they could, again, look at that. Same thing with Marble over here. They could look at it. It was right next to Icy Pop and cold Frappuccinos. Here's the one that will blow your mind. Well, it blew my mind at least. They took the picture, and this is not cropped in any way. This pole right here with the generic cigarette ad is right next to a brown building back there with a fence. Any idea what that brown building with a fence might be?
School.
Exactly, the school. So the point of this is not to bash tobacco users, as I explained to people, because some of the kids were saying, well, let's highlight the retailers in the county that do not promote tobacco or nicotine outside. I said, well, that's a good idea. You know, we could pursue that. Let's think through it, think about pros and cons. And another one said, well, let's highlight the ones that do have tobacco advertisements outside. And I said, oh, I said, you have to remember that a lot of these, like Circle K and a lot of these gas stations get thousands and thousands of dollars in contracts from tobacco companies to put the advertisements in certain places. This Winston sign is part of a national contract. The franchise, that local gas station, can't just take it down. And then I tried to share with them, as we all know as professors and teachers, publicly shaming someone is no way to make good change. Okay, it really is not a very good welcoming, inclusive, or social and emotional environment. So we were able to use PEACE to say, okay, here's the goal we have to achieve. We have to audit these retailers in some way to see how close tobacco, nicotine products or advertisements are to kid-related items. Didn't say how necessarily, it just said do that. And they found, through using the PEACE analysis, why things may have not been safe to do it, and then they found creative ways to do it. So this is one example of how you can use the PEACE analysis, particularly, like I said, I added the environmental component to include pandemics, hurricanes, natural disasters, things like that to it. Any questions so far? I have a couple more slides, but before I move to a different topic, I wanted to see if you had not only questions, but comments or suggestions as we try to develop this. It's not necessarily a tool, but an approach. Do you have any ideas as far as an approach, ideas, suggestions, questions? Okay. If you come up with some, please don't hesitate to email them to me, okay? Because we want to improve on this the best we can. But I like also how this is a youth-led project, and that just and students. I was teaching I taught data collection at University of Southern Indiana undergrads, and they were also doing this in their local communities too. So we're trying to get an approach that we can use in multiple areas, but it's also, again, being led by youth and young adults. So the other thing I wanted to highlight as far as the PEACE approach is maybe you're not dealing with a program, okay? What I do with some of my contracts are very program related, program implementation, development, implementation, and evaluation. But sometimes it's not always the programs that you're looking at. Sometimes people want to look, what about our stakeholders? And let's say that you are working, with a lot of different stakeholders, and you want to know, are there exterior or external factors that are influencing our stakeholders? Okay, and there are. Okay, so first of all, and this comes from marketing literature, there are in the marketing literature, there's 4 types of publics: input, internal, partner, and consuming. And that's helpful a lot because it helps you when you're differentiating and segmenting your product. Even nonprofits have to differentiate and segment their product. Some people say there's no such thing as competition. There is. It's called opportunity cost, transaction cost, emotional and psychic costs. So when you're in a nonprofit, you still have these other types of costs that you have to account for to reach your clients. Okay, so there's these different publics. The input publics refer to people or organizations that are basically providing resources or imposing regulations on your organization. Your internal publics, they refer more to your staff, your volunteers, your board members, the people that are carrying out the strategies to your organizations. Now, your partner publics, we have, especially in the nonprofit world, we have a lot of partner publics. Okay, I've been to one too many interagency committees to think that there are not partners out there. There are a lot of partners, and they're basically there to promote your programs as well as co-provide programs. And then we have our consuming publics. Our consuming publics are the people that are receiving our products or our services. And not just the clients, but also the media. You have to think the media in some respects can be consuming publics. If they weren't, why would we send news releases after an event? We want the media to take that product and publicize it even more. So what you can do if you don't want to think about programs like the example of the retail audit, you can think of the publics, okay? And how exactly is the political environment, the economic environment, the environmental, environment, social, cultural environment affecting our donors, affecting the people regulating, affecting, this one's a little bit higher because I haven't worked in that level yet of higher education administration, but let's take higher learning commission. How would political, environmental, economic, social, or technological things affect our higher learning commission? So you think of that, or our donors or the foundations, how will they affect them? So in technology even. So you can apply those external factors to the 4 types of publics that we have. Now, the next part I think is very relevant, and it's something I've thought long and hard about, and I'm still thinking long and hard about, and welcome your input on. After some thought, I think it's important for people to realize that there is not only a change, but a fluidity amongst our publics. Okay, and I don't like to read stuff off of slides, but I think there's 4 points here that would bring great discussion. Possibly not right this minute, based on our time and everything like that, but what was coming to me as I really meditated on it was that recent demonstrations regarding social justice has moved people from a consuming public, okay, maybe citizens or consumers in some way, have now almost taken a shift into an input public. They've almost taken it from being, yes, I was the citizen, yes, I am the consumer, but now I am giving you information, organization. I'm giving you regulations. I am imposing new norms on you, organization. So it's almost like this, some people that were consuming publics are now have been a fluidity, and they're now also not instead of, but also input publics. The media, very much the same way. The media were the ones that we would send our press releases to, or our press packets to come to our events. And now media, some media, have morphed into also being input publics. And I think we may have seen some of this, from the pandemic into recent events, that the media is out there reporting stories and those stories are sometimes inducing behavior change within organizations, how organizations are doing their jobs, the things that their goals. So new input publics, for example, one of my pet peeves when I talk to some of my students and program implementation and policy implementation is that sometimes new input publics, such as the ones that we just spoke about, can ensure that things such as diversity statements and processes are actually implemented. They can sometimes be that checks and balance that input public can, and make sure that and try to ensure that any type of statements that are put out, or any statements, let's even say mitigation plans that they put out, aren't just for show. Hey, the pandemic hit, we put together a mitigation plan. Can any of you tell me where your mitigation plan is in your university? It was a reaction. It's put on paper. It's put aside. My fear is that through all the sacrifices that have been going on over the past several weeks, is that you see a lot of people coming out with mitigation plans for pandemics, diversity statements because of horrible instances of social injustice. And it's a concern that those statements and plans get kind of put on a shelf in a binder. But what I see now is that some of these consuming publics moving into an input public can start holding these organizations more accountable for implementing the statements and the mitigation plans that they've created. So we're in what I would say 20 years ago when I started teaching nonprofit marketing. You had the 4 publics and you kind of did your marketing analysis on each of the 4 publics. But now you're starting to see that input publics and consuming publics people can belong to both of them. Okay. Now that was about 40 minutes. That's about as long as I ever talk in a class without giving students a chance. So I'm hoping my colleagues here will also have some ideas. So that's supposed to be me. Do any of you have any stories or questions that you'd like to share, either about environmental scanning or publics? Hopefully, I don't think you have questions about tobacco audits, but if you do, I seem to be living and breathing them these days. Do you have anything that you'd like to share?
Tosha, there was one in the, Brian, did you want to circle back on the question about the input publics, or did she get to that? You can go for it.
Could I ask you to go back to the pieced slide explaining the multiple points, just for reference?
It's fine.
Yes, he says. Okay, thank you.
And that link that I put out there, the LinkedIn piece, she's got a written sort of a 2-pager that's got that on there as well too.
Yes,
so you can download.
that was just posted this morning. I did about 3 or 4.
Put it in the chat box, Tosha, so that they can find it if they want to go grab it.
Okay.
Tosha, I do have a question for you. So I'm sorry, I didn't raise my hand. I apologize.
No.
You know, right now, have you seen a good model of like a feedback loop from the public, like something like what's going on now with the racial injustice happens and organizations take public input and then use that and formulate like a solution or a change within policy in an organization. Can you give us an example of a time that you saw a method used that worked really well for an organization taking public input? As you said, the public, the input public, then informing change.
Yes, not of recent, but the one that stands out to me would be, it's not the best example, Brian, but I would say that there has been an improved relationship and response to national disasters post-Katrina, where at that time, your nonprofits were scattered and unorganized necessarily, not a good communication plan. And I would say that through that, the consumers that died, lost homes, lived in trailers for so long, then actually started informing and talking to researchers like yourselves and the nonprofits, and they have formulated a better, I wouldn't call it a mitigation plan, but a better preparedness and response plan. But to catch me off the top of my head of the past few months, I'm sorry, I don't have one.
Oh, I didn't expect there was one most recently because we're kind of in the middle of
Yeah.
doing.
I would like, Brian, very much in 6 to 12 months to say, here's a great example of how it did happen.
Yeah, what's funny, you thinking about those crisis models. Sorry, Brian. Yeah, you can chime back in again, but you know those crisis response models where they do try to evolve and become more responsive or more collective or whatever it is to try and address the next one that comes along. But they are messy. They are a little messy, even when you think about any of them, right? Even we're just doing some analysis now on the most recent Hurricane Katrina and the response of the funders, and it's a constant process of trying to. So I don't know if there's maybe I don't know others have Deborah or others may have other kinds of input models. You think a little bit about some of this stuff, Deborah, on reference to some of the. I don't mean to put you on the spot, but
Sure.
I just count on you to do that. On some of the measurement stuff that I do, we take both an internal and an external view. So when we build measurement systems for nonprofits, we have a couple of measures that are completely external, and they're measures of results and activities that the organization cannot directly affect. And then the internal measures are the ones that collect information about what the organizations can do that will likely result in a change in the external measures, hopefully a better result being seen externally. So that's one.
Thank you for that. So right now, I'm with a military nonprofit organization. We're a collaborative of over 70 agencies, and so what we're doing immediately internally is
I thought I recognized you.
Yeah. Y'all been very, very. We love you guys, and I'll be applying. By the way, I would have completed had this class not been canceled. But anyway, so we're doing internal training in equality, diversity, sexual harassment. You know, the basic suite of stuff. I mean, to officially have the classes and things like that internally, but externally to the public, to our consumers, and to our organizations, we are hosting a series of town halls, 2 of them, one this Saturday, one on Monday. We want to get public input, have this conversation. We're the military veteran community and also supporters and caregivers, but we're wanting to take that input and check where we could be improved and so on and so forth, and just get public input. But yes, that's what we're doing so far, and I know we're not the only one doing this. A lot of organizations, institutions are taking this. So I think it's too early to tell the outcome or the best practice, but I would like some sort of a follow-up if any of the rest of you in this group are doing the same sort of thing, what worked, what didn't, and kind of form best practices out of this.
Yeah, anybody else out there that's trying to think about how you're, how do you filter or synthesize or capture is one, right? So Deborah gave you some examples of capturing some of that information, but then being able to interpret. So any thoughts about how folks are trying to do that, to understand from their different, and I do appreciate the different publics sort of thing. A lot of what I talk about is the importance of stratification, right?
Mhm.
And being able to understand what different constituencies, the other language I use, how they think about us and what they're thinking about and what they value. Yeah.
Deborah, I did have a follow-up question. When you talk about the external factors, I'm trying to place that in relation to my current knowledge base. With the external things, would that be similar to when you do a basic logic model and you list assumptions here and external factors here? Is it similar to that, or is it different?
It is similar to that. In fact, in a paper that I'm doing, there's a model. There is a framework, I guess, that includes the logic model and then includes the measures and the definitions. And then those can be used to get a different view of the measurement system. So just contact me, Tasha. I'm happy to share that.
Well, okay, I got your name already. Brian had a point, and I can't speak much to it yet. I'm still in the analysis stage of it, but and this was not as a result of recent events, but for the past 2 or 3 years, there's a membership association of police chiefs. It's called the Illinois Association of Chiefs of Police. And they've partnered with the Illinois NAACP. And this was as a result of the Ferguson incident. And they have gone around the entire state of Illinois holding conversations with diverse groups of people coming together, having roundtables, and they have now, I'm pleased, they have now handed me probably, I would easily 100 stacks of transcribed conversations that came out of these group conversations. And my point of bringing this back up to Brian was that some of the people that were at these community conversations were very likely consumer publics. And because of the conversations that they are engaging in, may very well influence and become input publics, if you will, into the relationships as well as the policies and procedures that are endorsed by at least the Illinois Association of Chiefs of Police. And I think that might be a good, I can't say it's a good example yet, Brian, but I can say that it could happen coming out of this, completely separate from recent events, because this has been going on for several years. So that when you talked about thinking of an idea of when it has successfully happened, I look forward to getting through all that qualitative analysis and hopefully coming up with some great ideas and actually have them implement some stuff.
Tasha, oh, go ahead, Linda.
May I share a model that I ran across in our organization? We've been casting about how to address the elephant in the room right now, since we are involved with A&M students in terms of the whole racial strife that is going on right now. And in looking at just different models, I ran across an organization, and now this is faith-based, but I think it can be as secular as you want it to be. The founder of this nonprofit is Latasha Morrison, and the name of her organization is Be the Bridge. She founded this in response to Ferguson because she felt that we have to start building bridges to address the whole social issue here. And her model is that she develops these ground level discussion groups. And then out of that, she developed a curriculum as to how you educate white people concerning what it's like to be brown, or what it's like to be Black. But take a look at that. It's a real interesting model. Mm-hmm. And it's worth looking at because she did this with just promoting discussion groups around somebody's kitchen table. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's now blossomed into a national organization. With curriculum, she's developed, it started as a women's initiative, among, intercultural, interracial groups. And she's now developed a curriculum for youth, for different aspects of the community. So that's an interesting one to take a look at.
I will. Are you okay if I share that then with the association in Illinois that I'm working with?
Sure. I mean, I just stumbled onto them and want to start finding out more information about the organization because I think it has application to a lot of settings, and especially for our group since we deal with the student population at A&M.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a good
how to get that discussion going.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think Deborah has something to say. Are you guys saying bye?
We're saying hello to Brian's kids.
Waving at Brian's new buddy.
Sorry.
Although I did have a question, Tosha. It had to do with if you could go to that audiences circle graph down.
For the publics?
Yeah, the different kind of publics. And my question is, when applying this, mm-hmm. and I'm thinking of your example in the discussion, is it an intention to get information from all four of those? Or does it depend on the goal of the work and where you are in the goal of the work? So I was just wondering about what the recommendations are for that.
I have to say that the public will has been used for a very long time by Weimer in nonprofit marketing courses. It's my attempt now. I'm starting to get that confidence as a young, well, I can't say young professor, but as a less tenured professor, to start using these models like this in different areas. So my answer to you would be that it has not been used that way, but when you're using it for marketing analysis, and the part of a marketing analysis is identify your target publics, segment your target publics, differentiate your product for your target publics. So in like Weimer's textbook, they have this will, and it's for a leukemia association, and it actually breaks apart individual, like you can see me pointing at the screen here, sorry. It actually breaks apart each of those quadrants by specific people that fit into there. Mm-hmm. So with the 50 grad students, I've had them do the 50 marketing analyses for the nonprofits. They actually have to identify individual actors that fit into each of those four quadrants. So, okay, did that answer your question? Okay, so yeah, I'm really experimenting, just trying to use existing tools in new ways. Oh, Brian's back. Right.
Any other questions that folks have or want to use this opportunity to chat with any of us? I posted what's coming up next. Deborah, did you want to make a pitch for your session here in a couple of weeks?
No. It's
Folks should come.
It'll be fun. I'm gonna look at in terms of employee engagement. I think there's a general understanding that that's kind of a big deal.
Yeah.
And it's kind of expensive when it doesn't happen. So I'm going to look at identifying 3 specific strategies that are doable. And then I'm going to have the CEO of the Austin Family Elder Care nonprofit. They are very focused on this because they provide in-home services to elderly, disabled, and their caregivers. So this was, the pandemic was a huge challenge for them. And the idea of losing their staff was pretty untenable. So they began to look right away at how to keep their employees engaged. And then I think I'm going to have, I think the good Dr. Taylor has some other, maybe one other person that we're going to bring in to talk about from an experiential way. Did you know that, Dr. Taylor?
Yeah, just I guess that was the confirmation. Yeah.
So anyway, it's going to be very application based.
I have someone for you. And I just dropped into the chat as well for everyone who joined us today, the link to our outreach page over at the Bush School. On the horizon, on the 3rd and 4th, we have our leadership and public service program. And then on the 5th, we will kick off our certification in nonprofit leadership. And so the link's there if anybody's interested in having a look at what those 2 programs offer. And again, thank you for being here today.
And if I could make an ask, and it's not for money, don't worry. If you, I don't know, and thank you, Will, very much for connecting the fact sheet. As I mentioned earlier, I'm kind of doing the fact sheets to prepare for my classes, but also just to provide, turn research-based information into practical knowledge people can use in the field. But I am not in a current academic setting where I am in central Indiana right now. And so if any of you hop on my LinkedIn, I welcome your feedback. That's one thing I miss about being on U of I campus and USI campus, especially during the summers. You don't have that type of peer feedback that you relish to try to improve your work. So I ask for it, I beg for it, feel free.
Excellent. Tosha, I thank you for your time today. I appreciate you coming in and sharing some of your thoughts. It was nice. Really appreciated these models and the examples. Helped us think a little bit about how we understand our external environment and understand the people that are in the constituents, the different publics that are important to us. So I appreciate it. Folks, reach out to Tosha if you've got questions. And we'll not next week, but of course we've got 4th of July. So enjoy that maybe a little bit, and then see you in a couple of weeks. Take care.
Bye, guys. See you.